Hey, hello, and welcome to the 249th episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, Dietitian Salaries with Stacey Dunn-Emke. Today we have a very special guest who was last on the podcast 204 episodes ago. I am talking about the one and only Stacey Dunn-Emke with Nutrition Jobs. So you may know her from her Nutrition Jobs platform. This is an amazing website and resource. It not only provides a great place to find nutrition jobs, but valuable resources on career coaching. Now, Stacey is a jack of all trades. She's a true entrepreneur. She has lots of stuff she does, lots of stuff she's great at. She's quite the expert on LinkedIn as well. That was actually the last time she was on the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast was episode 45, where we talked about leveraging LinkedIn. But what she is here today to talk about is her dietitian salary project. You can find this at dietitiansalaries.com, and I am here today to pick Stacey's brain about all things dietitian salaries. So, first off, Stacey, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about your background and what led you to start dietitiansalaries.com?
Katie, thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled and honored to be here and here to talk about one of my favorite subjects besides LinkedIn and aside from dietitian jobs, but that is dietitian salaries and money. I got very excited about this idea, this project, this website idea quite a while ago, actually. So, with nutritionjobs.com, it's a website that I've had for 25 years. It's a job board platform, career resource center for dietitians and dietitians to be. For a long time, I focused on working with employers and the employers posting the job on the site and letting dietitians know about those jobs. Over a few years ago, I started to focus a little bit more on helping dietitians interview for those jobs that are posted on my site, to be able to update and optimize their LinkedIn profiles, their resumes, making sure that their resumes were really loaded with value statements and action verbs, and making the resume really stand out so that they could get the job interview. And then we started talking a little bit more about salary negotiation, compensation negotiation. And then there was this pivotal moment when, together with Holly Larson, she and I were planning out some aspects of her annual dietitian money conference. I think you've been a part of that conference as well as I have. We were talking a lot about it. We were saying, while we really appreciate and enjoy all the information that the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has provided on their periodic reports, a static report of salaries and compensation and benefits for dietitians. It also has a salary calculator. That information is great. It oftentimes it's reported by the participants in the survey. In the report, it's very, very valuable, but it's sometimes a little dated, and it's a static report. Like, it doesn't tell you too much. It gives you some broad overviews. And both Holly and I were saying, oh, wouldn't it be great if there was like this interactive database where dietitians could enter in their salary information along with their actual job title, not just their focus niche or their practice area or the number of hours they're working, but like that job title. That job title is like so juicy and interesting. Wouldn't it be cool to have that?
Yes.
So she and I were like brainstorming on doing that. And then I just got the idea, like, yeah, let's do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to create this. And before we actually launched it, I I created a Google form, just sort of like a very, very beta version of it, created a Google form that I had some participants at FNCE at the Food Nutrition Conference complete. It was just this little QR code sitting on my table when I had a booth there. And I thought, oh my gosh, who's going to fill out this form? It takes, it's about 26 questions. It takes a couple minutes to fill out, not too long, but, it takes a few minutes to fill out. and people were pushing each other aside to get a picture of this QR code and to complete the survey. And I was shocked. Within a day, I had 100 participants. And so I think that was the moment that I realized it was like the final nudge. Like, people want this, people are interested in this, and they're excited about it. Let's do it. So I just created the website, dietitiansalaries.com. That was
I
a
love
long answer for your one question.
And I love the journey. I've had Holly Larson on the podcast as well, and I've been a participant in all of the Dietitian Money conferences. And like you and Holly, one of my favorite things to talk about is money. And I think it's something that we just don't often talk about a lot, or we don't feel comfortable talking about it, or we were never educated in how to have these conversations. But it's a really important discussion. So I love that you took this idea of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this thing, and you made it a reality. So I am curious though, what was the moment that you realized salary transparency was something that our profession really needed?
I don't know that there was any one particular moment, but I do feel like it was both my personal experience and the sort of this convergence of a lot of people also talking about it. While I feel like I'm sort of a powerful person in our profession, what was really helpful was a lot of people coming together, just starting to
Yeah.
talk about salaries, Holly in particular, just a lot of people uh, raising this to the forefront. So I think, well, I'll say one thing about salary and salary negotiation. When like 20 years ago, when I was interviewing for my dream job at the time, they uh, gave me the job, they offered me the job, and then they told me what the salary was. And I said, okay. And the salary was like a really sad salary, really low salary, had some pretty good benefits, but it was not a great salary. But I still said, okay. like not even knowing that that was an option for me, not even realizing that it's okay to negotiate. So I think so. That my personal experience and a convergence of other people showing and sharing an interest in talking about salaries. But honestly, if I were to pinpoint any one moment, was that day where I had the QR code for a Google form at my booth at Fancy, and watching people with huge smiles on their faces saying, yeah, I want to fill out my salary survey, because I think a lot of us are expressing dissatisfaction or feeling like they're not getting paid enough. And I think what I found was in this process of having the salary survey was that that's not the case for everybody. A lot of people are really proud of what their salary is and how they got to that point in their salary conversations, in their career. So I think there are two sort of messages out there. One is that people are dissatisfied and are not feeling like they're valued in their particular setting or in their profession or in their location. And then this whole other faction that's like, woohoo, look how much I am making. Like, look at me. I want to complete a survey to tell you how much I'm making. And I think that was the moment that I realized, oh, wow, this is a really fun, big topic. So, yeah.
I love that. And I loved how you shared that there's a group of dietitians and people who are so proud of the money they make, because I think a lot of our culture is like, oh, don't be so, arrogant, be more humble, but it's not any kind of way. It's like, yes, be proud. When I was working at the VA before I became a full hustler, I was very, very proud of my salary. I worked my way up and I was making six figures as a dietitian who didn't manage programs and didn't manage humans. And I was so proud of that. And plus I was at the VA, so I had phenomenal benefits. But I remember I had completed the academy survey. It's typically once every 3 years, and I was so proud to share like, this is how much I make, because I think as we have more conversations, it just opens people to opens up the doors for people to realize like, oh wait, I could negotiate or try to get more because I see other people doing it. What you said too about that dream job from 20 years ago, you mentioned I didn't even realize I could negotiate.
I
That's
didn't even know.
so
I had a
true.
neighbor actually at the time here in San Francisco. and we used to share what we were doing every day at work or outside of work. And I remember him asking me, okay, this is the day that you're going to get the job, right? They're going to come in with the offer and you're going to get the job. And he was in sales. I got the job and I did nothing to negotiate the offer. And I remember having to report back to him that I got the job, and he was like so excited. He's like, "Did you get like a car? Did you get like a bonus? Like, what'd you get? What'd you get besides your salary?" I'm like, you don't know. I'm a dietitian. You're in sales. I'm a dietitian. We don't negotiate salaries." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Oh wait, I could have. I don't know. Really? I don't think my profession does that." But that's not true, right? We can, and
Yes.
it's expected. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we can and we should. And I think there's this element that I've just seen from conversations I've had with people that they don't want to feel like they're not grateful. Like be grateful for what you've got. I don't want them to think I'm greedy. I don't want them to think this about me. But I'll just kind of share like I don't even know my whole money journey, how I came along to this stuff, but when I got my first job at the VA, I actually tried to negotiate for a higher pay. But in the federal government system, there was not a lot of movement at the time. I had my master's degree, but I hadn't been a dietitian yet. I was like right out of the field, and so they said they couldn't offer me anymore. So I said, okay, well, can you give me a sign-on bonus or travel relocation? And they gave me like I think it was like $2,000 or something, and I was like, so
Nice job, Katie.
it doesn't hurt to ask, and
It doesn't
honestly,
hurt to ask. Yeah.
and the people I was talking to, it was HR. My boss never knew about these conversations, and even if they did, it's not a bad thing to negotiate.
I think that's a great story because your story is a very typical story of the majority of us who are in traditional jobs, clinical dietitian or working at the VA or working in food service. You're often working not for a small company. You're often working for a bigger organization where or whether it's a contract food service company where the salary grades are predetermined. You're going to go in and they have to standardize this, right? So they're trying to make it equitable by having these pay grades or these tiers. If you have, between 3 and 5 years experience with a master's and you are coming into this position brand new, this is the grade or the tier that you're going to be eligible for. But you're right. So that's out of our control, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you can negotiate for, a lot of stuff. And I've got a lot of stuff on nutritionjobs.com about, other benefits that you can ask for. There's so many different ways to work around having a compensation package that you really feel good with.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I eventually got a schedule where I was able to work 4 10s. And to me, that felt so valuable because it gave me time to work on my side hustle, which led me to the full hustle. So, so yes, so many different benefits, but we have to recognize, yes, it's okay to negotiate, and then here's how we do it because there's lots of ways.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so let's talk a little bit about dietitian salaries. So, I guess actually maybe can you explain to listeners what dietitian salaries is? I feel like I'm just assuming they know, but maybe we can explain what it is.
Yeah. So dietitiansalaries.com is an anonymous salary database, essentially. So that means that when you participate in it as a dietitian or a dietitian to be a student, you have to be in the U.S. in the United States. Again, dietitian, registered dietitian, or a dietetic student or a dietetic intern. Those are all included in this survey. You then have access to the salary survey report. And the report is a sortable table, a database with actual job titles, the date that somebody entered their information, so you can see how relevant that is or not, how many hours they work in that position. Because one of the sort of, I don't know why this was surprising to me, but most people do not work full time as dietitians. They are actually working fewer than 40 hours on average, which I thought was very interesting. The database also includes their salary based on the number of hours that they're working. It includes their location, their city, state, their area of practice, and their focus niche. It also includes their work setting, so their flexibility in their position, whether they're in person or remote or a hybrid of those two. So I just think there's a lot of really great information in there. Most people can use it to explore different job titles and their corresponding salaries, but there's really a lot more you can do with it. But that's what it is. It's very, very easy to use. It doesn't take more than a few minutes to enter. You don't enter anything manually. It's all just checking off a few boxes, except for your job title, your actual job title, and of course your salary and the number of hours that you work. So it's really easy to enter your information, and then it's really easy to sort through the data. You can also create an account and then be able to go back in to see that report, but then to be able to go back in and update that one job. You can also add another job because a lot of dietitians have more than one job, it turns out. So you can add as many jobs as you want in there. Most people have, I think the average number is 1.2 jobs. So it varies. Some people have 3 jobs. Obviously, not all 40-hour-a-week jobs, but so that's sort of it in a nutshell. That's how it works.
Yes. So they do have to go in, make an account, fill out the form, and then they have access to this salary database.
Yes, you can't just create an account and be a passive observer of all the stuff. You've got to go in and participate as well. That's
Yeah.
how that works.
Yes. And it is free.
It's free,
Yes.
absolutely free.
That is something that I love because I do like the Academy's salary calculator and their comp and benefit survey. But you're right, it only comes out so often. It's not, it's not this moving, changing, living document. But one thing about this resource is you have to be an Academy member to access it. Now, I am an Academy member, so I can access it, but I love that anyone can access the dietitian salaries. And it's always, it's up to date. It's always changing. It's like a living, breathing document and has some really cool searchable stuff in it.
Yes, it is very dynamic, right? So you can go in there today and enter your information in and see what's out there. You can log back in a week or 2 or 3 and see what's new out there. Are there other dietitians with some unique job titles? Maybe you're interested in working in nutrition communications or as a media dietitian, or you want to see different job titles that around clinical nutrition. So whether that's pediatric or renal or whatever it might be, you can look and see what people are describing as their job title and then that corresponding salary.
Yeah, I love that. So, based on the data you've collected, what would you say is the current average salary that you're seeing for dietitians in the US?
So right now, based on my survey participants, and there are 2,855 participants, which I'm really excited and proud about. I think the Academy usually gets between 4,000 to 6,000 participants. So I really like our robust number. Based on that, of the registered dietitians, so this does not include students or interns, people not making any money, the average salary that has been extrapolated out to a 40-hour work week so that we're comparing apples to apples
Yep.
is 84,466. So I'll say that again, $84,466 an hour. If you compare that to the Academy's number, it's very, very similar. I think the Academy's that number with about 6,000 participants, dietitians, I believe it's about 72,000 a year. I don't do anything by the hour, so that's what it is annually. So that's what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, yeah. So, what would you say are some of the biggest factors that influence how much a dietitian makes? Like, location, setting, certifications, anything like that?
So yeah, all of the usuals, and it sort of parallels that which we see in the Academy's compensation and benefit report, in that people who live in some locations tend to earn more money because the cost of living index is higher. So for example, in California versus Mississippi versus North Dakota, or New York versus some other smaller states, Idaho, Montana. So those as you would typically expect, they're earning more. The certifications, I think is one of the most unique elements that can increase someone's earning potential. And I took a look at a few numbers to see based on our population. So if you're looking at advanced certifications from the academy, for looking at if you're a sports dietitian certified in sports nutrition, oncology, eating disorders, diabetes, culinary. So you will see that those people are typically earning more. So, for example, somebody who is certified at CSSD, so certified in sports dietetics, $125,000 a year is sort of the average. I'm going to just round up a little bit and not give you all the full long number, but someone who's certified in oncology is on average, they're earning extrapolated out again to the 40-hour work week, $129,000 a year. Eating disorders was about $120,000. Someone who is certified as a diabetes educator is $121,000. And culinary nutrition, about $135,000 per year. So what you might also notice that those ones who are earning a little bit more with those advanced certifications also tend to be in what we think of as non-traditional roles. Oftentimes they're working as some version of being an entrepreneur or in private practice. So that makes a difference, like the type of job, the focus area, or the practice area that you're in will also make a difference. Education, of course, makes a difference, and it parallels that which we see for the academy. So those with a doctorate in nutrition, well, actually, uh, I think both of us isolate out doctorate in other or doctorate in nutrition, so a clinical doctorate in clinical nutrition. Those who have a doctorate in other tend to make the most. I don't have the number in front of me, but I think it's like 130,000 a year. A doctorate in nutrition, so likely clinical nutrition, that number is about a little bit less. And then under that is somebody with a master's degree. And then under that, of course, is dietitians without a master's, without advanced education. So it's sort of like what you would see in the academy's number. I wanted to also, I thought this was interesting. I looked at the report for what percent people are working in person versus remote versus hybrid. They are about 62% in person, the population that participated in the survey, remote about 12%, and those who are working in a hybrid work setting, that's about 26% of the population. But then if I pull out also where people are working, what sort of practice area, so traditional versus non-traditional versus private practice, that's also very interesting. So of my population that is completing the survey, of those who are working traditional positions, that's about 67%. Those people are earning about $78,000 a year. So sort of what we're expecting and sort of in line with also what the Academy is showing. But those who are working in non-traditional roles, entrepreneurs, media dietitians, they on average, and that comprised 29% of the survey participants. They on average, extrapolated out to a 40-hour work week, are earning $96,000 a year, which I thought, oh, right on. That's awesome. But even more surprising to me were those in private practice. That was 4% of the survey participants. They are making, well, what would you guess, Katie? Would you guess they're making more or less than people in traditional roles and non-traditional roles? They are making more. They're making $100,000 a year on average, nationwide. So that's the average. That's really awesome. But they're not working full time. They're working about 30 hours a week. So that's about 75K for working 30 hours a week. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
I
that
could
is
go
so
on and
interesting.
on with all these numbers. I just find all of this very interesting and fun
Yeah.
and fun.
Yeah, and I love how it seems like your data And I'm actually not surprised to hear this, but it sounds like you have a lot more non-traditional people who are completing your survey versus when I see the Academy survey, usually that's numbers a lot smaller.
Right. And I don't have the number in front of me, but not 100% of the survey participants are Academy members. I think it's closer to about 60 or 70% off the top of my head from a previous run of the data. So I think that's why you're just going to get a different population subset and some really interesting job titles in there as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, well, I mean, as dietitian side hustle, entrepreneur, all non-traditional, I'm like, yes, people see this opportunity that we have. And I'm just going to say something too, because I know we're talking about money and I know we're talking about salaries, but one of the things that I love so much about being an entrepreneur is that it's more than just money. To me, time freedom is one of the best gifts of all time. To be more present with my kids, to have flexibility, to be able to do what I want with my time, but then also clinical freedom. And what I mean by that is like you get to do what you want to do. You got to remain ethical and pay your taxes, but other than that, you could do what you want to do. I think back to when I was working at the VA. I love that job, but there were so many meetings that should have been an email. There were so many policies that didn't make sense, and it didn't matter if it didn't make sense or not. It was my job and I had to do it. So being an entrepreneur, you get clinical freedom, time freedom, and you can make more money. So quick
You
plug
can
for
make more
entrepreneurs.
money. Well, I'll tell you something else that was interesting in the survey. So, one of the questions I ask is, how satisfied are you with this particular job? And it's a scale of 1 to 5. I didn't do a 0, I didn't do greater than 5. So, 1 to 5, 1 being very unsatisfied, 5 being super, super satisfied. On average, most people were very satisfied with their job. I think the number was 3.9. So almost, let's say it's a 4 out of 5 satisfied with their job. But what was really funny was something sort of unexpected was that the more people make, the more satisfied they are with their job. So there's a lot of ways that you can find uh, great about your job, but making more money certainly is a factor. We don't know which one came first, but people who are earning more money are more satisfied with their jobs.
Yes, and I think anyone listening would be like, yes,
Yep.
100%. I was actually talking to another dietitian earlier today, and he is working a job that he absolutely loves. He loves what he does, he loves his coworkers, but the job doesn't pay well. So I could imagine if it paid better, he'd be like, dream job. It's like we need all of the things to match up. So I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, awesome. So I'm so fascinated by all this data you're sharing, and I hope that more people go sign up because the more people who sign up, the more robust the database is going to be, and also just there's just so much value in it. But let's talk a little bit more about making more money. What do you wish more dietitians understood when it comes to negotiating salary or advocating for higher pay?
I think you and I hit upon that a little bit earlier, and that is it's totally normal to talk about salary. You don't have to say your exact salary if you don't feel comfortable doing that in a conversation, but it's totally normal to negotiate and have what I call, a salary conversation with your hiring manager, with the person you're actually going to be working with HR. It's totally normal and totally expected. And in fact, they might even perceive you as being a little passive or not having leadership skills and abilities if you are not having that salary compensation negotiation conversation, right? Like, so it is totally normal, but it is also normal to not feel comfortable with it. So I think that's something important to acknowledge as well. You don't negotiate your salary more than a handful of times in your career, most likely. And the negotiations that you might have outside of salary might not feel the same as having a salary negotiation. Salary feels so personal and vulnerable versus maybe haggling over the cost of something else, right? Of buying something or negotiating in another type of transaction, maybe your house, that you're purchasing a house or something. And you would expect that too, right? Like you wouldn't just offer up a number and then walk away with that number. Like you would expect a little bit of back and forth. It's totally normal. Same goes for your salary. And I think again, knowing that there's a lot of tools out there. I've got a lot of tools on nutrition jobs. You can see them also on dietitiansalaries.com, where you can get some tools about how to help yourself with this. But I think that you also want to take some time to practice when you're going for a new job, which is when you're going to make the most increase in your salary. You're going to make the biggest jump. Sometimes they say it's about 13% increase. So, anyways, more than the 3% cost of living raise that you're going to get in your current job. But you can negotiate for a little bit more. It may not be the salary like we talked about. It could be other benefits. I remember one time in another position, I had the salary was not negotiable. We were on a track within our tiers. The benefits were also not negotiable, that they were just sort of what they were. But I did negotiate for a change in hours similar to what you had. I also, for the same dollar amount, so I was working 30 hours a week for the same pay that I was making 40 hours a week. So that was essentially a jump. And I was on call for those difference of those 10 hours. So I was always available by pager at the time. But I also negotiated or I asked for a different office. I was actually out in an office space that was with a whole bunch of other people and like lots of distractions, a lot of noise. And I'm a very focused worker, and I need no music, no distractions, no conversations, no people. I put a headset on when I work, oftentimes even at home in a quiet house. But I negotiated for this horrible office inside this little space that everybody actually wanted, and I said, if you want me to work here, that's where I'm going to be working. I want to work in that little that little box away from all the people. So it didn't cost them a thing, but those are things that you can advocate for yourself to make your job a five star job. And I think just practicing, right? I think the idea of practicing how to negotiate, you have to do it out loud. You have to do it into your voice recorder in front of a mirror or just used to saying the classic answers to some of the questions you're going to get, and they offer you a salary that wasn't exactly what you had in mind. You wanted a little bit more, like practicing that sentence, and being appreciative of that and being very thankful, but continuing the conversation, continuing the relationship, and just getting used to saying that stuff out loud. It's different than when you're like reading it on your little cue cards, but then when you actually say it and say it with a smile, you are thankful for that job offer. You are thankful for them having this conversation with you. You want to have that friendly confidence in your voice, in yourself, and you're being very respectful and you're empowered. It's okay to be both. You don't have to go into this, negotiation like angry and I'm going to get something from you, right? Like you can have this really positive interaction because you're going to be with them, hopefully, for a little while. And
Yeah.
you want to have a great relationship, a great business relationship with the people that you're working with. So, but I also think, I think the reason why we want to negotiate salaries and compensation is not just to have more money in our personal accounts, bank accounts, but to attract more dietitians, a wider range of different types of dietitians coming into the profession. I think you and I both read a lot of the Reddit threads about people like, should I become a PA or should I become a dietitian? Should I become a nurse or should I become a dietitian? Like, no, become a dietitian. Become a registered dietitian, nutrition expert, and there's a lot of opportunity. And so come on in. We make a normal amount of money. you know?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I feel like you just shared so much value, Stacey. Like I love the piece that you said. Of course it doesn't feel good when you're negotiating. Like how often do we do this and when do we get the practice? Because sometimes I think people think, "Oh, I'm not good at it." But I
Right.
don't know many people who are just innately good at it because how do you get good at anything without practice, right? So I loved your advice of practicing, of utilizing tools that you do have on nutrition jobs. And I'll just add to that, like do it scared. The worst thing they're going to say is no. But what if they say yes? Or what if they come back and you're able to negotiate some other benefit that you're like, yes. I will say I used to be, even though I feel like I did advocate. I asked for more money. I did negotiate when I was a younger dietitian, but I feel like being an entrepreneur, I've started to love conversations about money. I bought a new car last year. And I know that car salesmen have a reputation, right? I was so excited to talk to this car salesman. I was so excited to negotiate. And in the past, I was like, oh, car salesmen are the worst. But it was fun. I was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's negotiate. Did they come down in price? No. But I got a nice set of racks on top of my SUV. And I was like
Right?
walking. I was like, man, I feel so good about this.
And
So
you're still telling, so here's the thing, you're still telling that story because you should be proud of what you
yeah.
did. It's empowering and it's so satisfying to get just like a little bit of something, right? Like I can't speak enough about how helpful it is to your, mental, your confidence, like how great that feels to say, yeah, I went in and I negotiated and this is what I got, right? Like that feels so good.
Every time I see my car and I see those little roof racks, I'm like, I paid $500 for those suckers. But I just think of how, in the past that would have been such a stressful conversation. And it was so cool to lean into that conversation with joy and excitement. And honestly, a part of me was thinking I get to practice my negotiation skills because while I don't have a traditional job and I'm never going back to a traditional job, I still negotiate because I still do contract work. I still get gigs where I'm doing speaking engagements and media work. And I am having to confidently negotiate my rates and be fully prepared to walk away if it doesn't meet my needs. So I always look for these opportunities. So if you guys are buying a car, use that as good practice. Oh goodness. Okay, so I feel like you kind of started alluding to my last question for you, but I'm going to ask it anyways. How can we as dietitians collectively raise the standard for our profession's pay?
I think just by having conversations like this, listening to conversations like this, thank you for listening, everybody. Work with your employers, work with your union reps, work with your HR. I think a lot of dietitians can also get really good and better at benchmarking the outcome of what they're doing and not just use this old tired phrase like, well, I'm worth it, with the hand raise. Like, but say exactly how is it that you're worth it? What are some quantifiable reasons for what you're doing, what we're all doing in our profession, like benchmarking outcomes, like talk about what it is that we're doing. Are we saving money? Are we improving quality of life? Are we increasing patient satisfaction? Look at what the mission is of the organization or the business that you're working for. How are they being graded by their board or by the investors or keeping the business afloat? We work we're a business, right? We provide a service in exchange for money. So look at what those are. I know a lot of clinical dietitians have done benchmarking, looking at how nutrition intervention affects staffing or can decrease the length of stay, maybe change out malnutrition outcomes, or be able to identify the incidence of malnutrition and add that to the diagnosis codes so that the reimbursement level is higher. Look at how we're changing biometrics, hemoglobin A1C, for example, maybe how we're affecting discharge criteria. Like, look at these benchmarking numbers and then go back to HR or go back to the union people or go back to looking at how much staff, maybe you are making $100,000 working as a clinical dietitian in a hospital, but you're working like literally a 10-hour day and you're just like dying, right? But what if you had like one more person or 1.5 more FTEs that you guys have justified by saying how important we are with actual numbers? So I think looking at those outcomes and then do that for yourself as well. When you're looking at your resume, your LinkedIn profile, I know I've said this a whole bunch of times, but I could even use to hear this one more time, and that is make sure that you are quantifying what it is that you're doing, even if it's the number of people that you've given a presentation to, or if you've increased patient satisfaction, decreased if you don't have the actual number, the percentage. Like, go back to what you're saying. Don't just list job duties on your resume or LinkedIn profile. Talk about what outcome, like what was affected. I think that is sort of looking at, again, what our value is and how we can share how we're improving outcomes.
I love that. So have conversations about money, look at the data, look at the outcomes. I'm so glad you mentioned that data piece. I mean, I say in business all the time, you can't manage what you don't measure. But if we're actually trying to negotiate higher pay, it's not just about, feel goods and I'm worth it, but it is like, here's what I bring to the table. Here's the value that I'm providing. And the cool thing is that as you as an individual are negotiating and making higher pay, it does elevate all dietitians because
Hmm.
organization raises rates, then the other one does, and it really does have a trickle effect. So, yeah. So, Stacey, thank you so much for coming on here and having this discussion about salary, about negotiation, and even for creating the Dietitian Salaries resource, which is so, so valuable. As we wrap up, I would love if you could share with our listeners about where they can find you online and how they can connect more with you.
Please do participate in dietitiansalaries.com. I'll give all the information that you can find and click on it directly. I also have a salary negotiation planner that I can provide for Katie and share with all of you guys. It's just another tool that you can use to really bring this to the forefront of when you get ahead of HR or your hiring manager, whoever it is. So I'll provide the resource for that. And then, of course, nutritionjobs.com. It's been around for 25 years and great jobs. I have really great employers on there. We've got a lot of really great resources. There's a lot of information in there. And you can also subscribe to my newsletter. I'll send a link to that so that Katie can share that with you as well. And of course, follow me on all the channels, YouTube at Nutrition Jobs, Instagram, LinkedIn in particular. So connect with me on LinkedIn under my name, Stacey Dunn-Emke. I'll send her the link for that as well. And then also the company page for nutritionjobs.com. Dietitian Salaries does not have a LinkedIn company page, I just realized. That's next.
You're the one who got me to start my Dietitian Side Hustle company page.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay, well, okay, you guys, so go fill out the survey, check it out, connect with Stacey online. And again, thank you so much, Stacey, for being here today on the podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and I will see you all next week on the podcast.